Without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Mike. So Mike is the Operations Manager at AusCERT, which is, as you all know, the leading cyber emergency response team in Australia, and provides information security advice to its members, including the higher education sector. He enjoys information security and technology, and he also enjoys fixing things. Great, I have a problem with my laptop. Whether it's a broken piece of tech or an entire business unit at work that needs a strong...
I do charge for that, by the way.
Oh, you do charge for that? All right. Maybe not then. Most importantly, he enjoys public speaking to spread awareness of information security topics, which he does fantastically. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, God, he's built me up way too much. Crikey. All right. Look, thank you very much for coming, because I am aware I'm up against some very stiff competition. I knew I was really pushing it uphill, and that's why I felt the need to mention it this morning, try and get a few of you here. I don't know if Alex is releasing his on video. This will be on video, for sure. All right, so do I need to go through this, or are we all okay about it now? All right. If I'm talking to a group of people who have titles that start with the letter C, then it is cybersecurity. If I'm talking to most of the people I see in front of me in this room, it is still InfoSec. Have you any idea how hard it is to switch between the two all the time? If you say cybersecurity to you lot, you'll throw things at me. If I said it at breakfast this morning with our CIO at the university, he'd probably expect me to say cyber. And actually, I think he is a Doctor Who fan. Did he tell me he's a Doctor Who fan?
He's a Star Trek.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. All right. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, and I think that's probably a very small group of people these days who don't know who we are, the most important thing is that we are not for profit. So that doesn't mean that we're also for loss, so we don't do things and lose money. We cover our expenses, and that's how we operate. We've been doing it for a very long time. 1993 in InfoSec is a long time. I wasn't in InfoSec at the time. I was at university then, and that was just an imagination figure at the time. My first information security gig was the year 2001, when only the banks did it. And now it's so popular everyone does it. Isn't that exciting? Now that it's so popular, I might have to go and do something that isn't popular. One of the things that we do very well is we collaborate. So something that AusCERT did around the turn of the century was get together with another group of certs in the Asia Pacific region and form AP Cert. We were actually part of that. We weren't the one that made it happen, but we were on the team of certs that made that happen. That's now blossomed into, I think they've got about 30 certs at the moment in the region, and they collaborate. We collaborate. So if we want to talk to someone else in the AP region, we've got contacts and we can talk to them. It works extremely well. So that community's actually been doing United We Stand in collaboration, the theme of our conference last year. They've been doing that since about the year 2001 or 2. That, for me, is something pretty interesting, because if you look at the social studies of this, large organisations are only just figuring out that it doesn't matter about the competitive edge if everything goes to pot. So a lot of organisations are now jumping on the bandwagon and saying, yeah, sure, we'll share things. I'm aware of banks that are actually deliberately sharing information back out to the community, not just the banking community, but the community in InfoSec, and I think that's really wonderful. First is one of the other ones, but that's worldwide. They're much, much larger. So we actually are very active in those communities. We send people to their annual meetings, which is of the form of a conference just like this, and at those events, going around and talking to everyone at the event and saying, hey, I'm Mike from AusCERT and this is what we do, that's really useful when you come to us as members and say, I've got a phishing scam in, I don't know, China. We'll know someone in China Cert that we can talk to about it if we're having trouble with it. So that sort of thing really works. Let's go back in time, though. This is I could have done a Star Wars themed thing and done the in a galaxy far, far away and all of that, but I haven't. I don't know why there is a sheep. in this picture. I don't know, and the person, is it the person holding it? No. Sorry, I'm just looking at the names. It's the person 2 down from the one holding the sheep is the person that gave us this photo. Danny Smith actually contacted us a little while ago and said, guys, I'm not sure if you're aware, but it is actually your 25th birthday this year. Now, we were well aware of it, but we didn't know the actual date because, hey, it's 25 years and there's no original AusCERT people around anymore. It was actually very lucky that Danny was able to tell us, yes, it is a date in March, and we actually did a little bit of a celebration, and we invited some of the AusCERT alumni along to come and meet the new team at AusCERT, and we had a few drinks in Brisbane one day after work. And that was actually really interesting because some of the guys in that photo actually came along and shared some stories. So I'll tell you a couple of them as we go through this. Towards the end of this presentation, though, we'll get into the now and what we're actually planning for the future. It's fun to look backwards, but it's also good to look forwards. Okay, so there's another picture. Now, one of the things that Danny said to us when he got in touch with us was he said, "How do you go these days for getting equipment?" And I said, well, we're part of the University of Queensland, and the way the model works is we fund the staff salaries. That's obviously the biggest expense that we've got in AusCERT. It's the staff salaries. So we fund that with the member fees that you pay us. That's how that works. And he said to me, well, okay, yeah, sure. What about, how do you buy equipment? And I said, oh, we just asked the university for it. We're part of the Department of IT. The ITS, IT services. And he sort of gave me a bit of a blank look. And what you see in front of you there was the computer that they had. I don't know what those boxes are, external hard disks. I mean, it's 1993. I owned a computer with an internal hard disk at the time. I don't know what they are. Any clues? External SCSI hard disk? That's the best we could come up with, actually. Yeah. Tape, maybe that's what it was. But they had to fund that. They actually had to go out and buy that. So this was these guys putting a cert together with chewing gum and sticky tape. The way it all started, there's a cat in there, by the way. Every InfoSec presentation should have a cat, but I'm not a cat person. So the cat is actually hidden in the box, and that's an action sequence of the dog trying to get the cat. The cat won in the end, in case you're wondering. Yeah. In the very early days, we were still a cert. At that time, we were a security emergency response team. CERT, as in SERT. So a lot of the original documentation says CERT instead of CERT with a C. It actually started out because there was a badly behaved student at University of Queensland that did something to NASA. And to this day, I cannot get an honest answer out of anyone who was around at the time, either because they don't remember or they don't want to remember. Either way, someone from NASA contacted the then Prime Minister, and I suck at history, so I have no idea who that was, and that Prime Minister contacted the university and said that. So the 3 universities in Brisbane got together and decided that, hey, we should have something to do with this information security stuff. And so AusCERT was born. It actually was a collaborative of Griffith and QUT as well as UQ at the time. The way it landed, obviously, it landed at UQ. We were actually told some really interesting stories about what they did at that time. There were actually people doing wiretaps with modem calls. We all remember modems, used the plain old telephone service lines. Watching commands going past on that wire for various connections over Telnet, because, hey, SSH wasn't sexy back then, to access information that they shouldn't have accessed. And those of you that noticed on one of the previous slides, there was a picture of Byron Colley. And you might remember he actually went on to work at the AFP, presented at our conference a couple of years ago. So there was actually heavy involvement between AusCERT as a computer emergency response team and law enforcement and going and belting down the door of some student that was doing something nasty over Telnet. Encryption probably would have helped them. There is also, in the safe at AusCERT, and it has survived, I don't know, about 4 moves, because apparently the office that we're currently in is not the office that we were originally in, still at University of Queensland, but there is actually a handwritten register, and it's just a book, like a normal sized book, and it has the date and the time, and it has University X was suffering a DDoS. They had DDoSes back in the 90s. Unfortunately, I can't show it to you, obviously, it's TLP red. Okay, so then AusCERT was born officially in 1997 after being a cert for just the universities, and we became a member organisation at that point. And that is obviously the same member organisation that you see today. Funds were collected through membership to fund the operation. There were actually a few shaky days before 1997 where it didn't look too good for the funding situation, and AusCERT may not have continued. And that was actually one of the reasons why they went down the membership route. Now, the interesting thing about this is if you're going to put your hand up and say you're the national cert, you have to be the national cert. So there was obviously a lot of time and effort and work and resourcing required to go into this, and AusCERT was effectively propping that up with membership fees. So a select few were paying membership and getting services, and the whole country was served as the national cert of AusCERT and getting the services. So I'm sure you can see the problems with that situation, and that did continue for an awfully long time, and surprisingly it worked apparently. Where it started to get a little bit difficult was towards the end of the previous decade. Things got a little bit tricky, and that was when obviously everyone became aware of InfoSec and it became a lot more prevalent, and there was just no way that AusCERT could have kept going the way they did. So the funding situation was solved by the Rudd government, and that was when they said, you know what, we're going to do cyber, and we're going to have CERT Australia. Does everyone remember GovCert before CERT Australia? So all they did was government stuff. That's it. CERT Australia was then funded, and they put their hand up and said, yes, we'll take on the role of national CERT. And they received a reasonable amount of funding. That's obviously increased, as you would have seen in the news over the years. Now, I personally think that we probably missed some opportunities. I wasn't around at AusCERT at the time, and it took us a long time to realise that you can actually drop a lot of the things that you're doing because that's now funded by the government. So for a couple of years, I think there was a bit of a perception of competition. So let me say right now, there is absolutely no competition. It's not a competition. We're all in this together. So we got to the stage in 2013 when I came along where I said, look, we're going to drop, responding to the public. Why would we do that? Members are paying us and we want to be able to respond to just our members. So we dropped that, and we actually started talking to CERT Australia. How hard was that? And that's all it needed. So we've talked to them and said, look, we're doing this, we're doing these things with these pieces of intelligence. What are you doing? Do you want us to drop this? Are you picking that up? And that conversation goes on quite a lot. One of the most common conversations is actually, someone just called us and they were talking about stuff, and they're not a member of CERT Australia, so we think they're probably one of yours. And we'll look them up and go, oh, yes, sorry, they've just called the wrong hotline. That's actually quite common. There's quite a lot of that going on. We still encourage people to talk to CERT Australia, even if they're a member of AusCERT, because, hey, we're different. We get information that they can't get, and they get stuff we can't get. So if you're eligible to receive their services as well, you should be doing it. Now, when we did a little bit of a rebranding exercise, that was after we'd actually had effectively a mass migration of staff followed the national cert. So they thought, oh, the sexy thing to be is in the national cert, so I'm going to go over to CERT Australia. And then obviously they realised that working in the government is just pretty much the same as working in a university. It's just a different building, and things weren't as interesting as they could have been. So unfortunately, a lot of staff actually followed the dream and then realised the dream was the same and then went out to private industry. And we went through a big rebranding exercise to basically rejuvenate AusCERT. And I'm extremely proud of the team that has built up since I came in. It's not me, I'm standing here telling you the story, but it's the team that did all of this. And they have actually come up with some fantastic things. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't know if anyone remembers, I'm just going to wander briefly away from this. I don't know if anyone saw our very limited edition accidental logo that we put out in 2013 or 14. We forgot Tasmania. So University of Tasmania called us and it's been fixed, and there is our logo. You may have noticed that there is another logo now floating around the conference. We're actually in the process of rebranding again to something that is less confusing, simply because people don't know which letters are capitalised. So we're going to capitalise the whole thing from now on. Okay, so this is what AusCERT looks like now. Just think back to that slide that I showed you before, and there was, 5 or 6 people in that, plus a sheep. We've now got a lot of people in AusCERT. One of the interesting things is we're quite light on for management, I think, for such a large team. And I think that's why we're actually so successful. We've only got myself and one other manager, and our director, who was in the room, I think he got a... Oh no, he's back. Our director is actually also the Deputy Director of Infrastructure Operations at the University of Queensland. So his portfolio is quite massive, but because we're cool and sexy, he gives us a lot of his time, which we do appreciate. Of course it is, David. It's because of the wonderful staff that work with you. But you can see in this list that there's obviously a big focus on the technology side of things. That's the left-hand side. But everything you see about you at the moment is from the other side, and I'll get to the bits that we contribute to in the technical side at the conference. But everything, all you see here of the logistics and the membership operations and all of that sort of stuff is done by a very small team of a couple of membership officers, a specialist, and a team leader for the marketing side of things. So they actually run a very lean team, but they do a lot. On the other side, we're actually increasing the number of analysts, and I did mention that we're advertising. So if you're interested, have a look at that. There, another shameless self-plug. We have a lot of opportunities, I'll say. So we can actually take in staff that are interested in InfoSec, have the basic level of training and knowledge that can get them through our technical evaluation, but we can train you up on everything else. So we have the opportunity, because we've banded this job across multiple grades, we can actually take you on at a junior level, give you the training, you'll learn incident response, you'll learn threat intelligence, you'll dabble with security tool automation. We've got a DevOps team that you'll work with. It's quite a lot of fun. So have a look at that and spread the word, please. Okay, so that is the modern day AusCERT. Now, some of the things that team has done over the years is actually incredibly exciting. This is actually what gets me out of bed every morning and brings me into work. It's the people I work with. Who's an AusCERT? Well, no, don't answer that. Who's aware of the MSINs? Yeah, okay, heaps. This product came out, a couple of years ago now, and this was the result of one of our analysts, who is now the team lead of the analyst team, Ananda. One day we were sort of talking, shooting the breeze about all the threat intelligence and data we have, and there's a truckload. Even back then, a few years ago, there was a lot. We were always quite disappointed that the sheer volume of it was too much to process manually. Everyone knows the story. So, it was all just falling on the carpet. There were just ones and zeros landing on the floor, and I think the cleaners came in every week and mopped it all up, and it's all gone. So we sort of looked at, well, what can you do with that? And that was at the time that big data was the sexy buzz phrase in the industry. So we decided, all right, let's build a big data system. And when I say we, I mean Ananda did this. So he's come up with the concept that you see on the slide there. One of our very talented developers who's now moved on to other opportunities did a lot of the back-end work for it, and we can now deliver you an aggregation of more than 100 different data feeds. Some of them I can talk to you about, like Shadow Server, obviously. Everyone knows Shadow Server. But a lot of the feeds we either pay for, using your membership funds to pay for the feed, or we receive them because we're a part of an educational institution and we can't divulge where we get it from. So when we give you that data, we're giving you everything we've got, and we often can't talk about where it's coming from, but obviously that the system that we've got here is designed to get that to you about your environment in the most efficient way possible. So that was just an example of one of the many things that came out of the AusCERT team, because they looked at, well, what do you want? What do you members need from us? What have we got, and how can we get there? Another really interesting thing was at the time that data breaches were starting to scare the C-levels, one of the people that worked for us at the time realised that, hey, a lot of that stuff's getting publicly posted, and we need to be looking at things like pastebin and monitoring. I want to say the dark web, but you'll probably all throw tomatoes at me for that phrase as well. So a system was born to do that before the days of all the systems that automatically do that these days. So this was pretty much right after I started at AusCERT, and one of the analysts of the time just built that from the ground up using a few open source tools to do the scraping from things like pastebin and all of that. So generally, if something of yours gets publicly posted, it's going to turn up in that system and we'll be able to get it back to you. Another example of the analysts going, hey, problem, here's a solution, we can give that to our members. And when we do that, 99 times out of 100, we can actually give that to you under the membership that we're already charging, because we don't have to return a profit, we simply have to not make a loss. So all that stuff's pretty cool. What I might move on to now is what we're actually doing for the rest of this year and probably beyond. One of the things I don't like to do is put dates on things. So I can say with a lot of confidence that these things will probably happen in 2018, but I'm one of those people that doesn't really like to put too much pressure on the creative juices that are flowing within AusCERT. So I might occasionally do an Elon Musk style tweet about, hey, I'm going to do some really good announcements at the conference, but I'm not going to go and sleep in a sleeping bag at the end of the production line until the team, do the thing. Everyone knows Elon Musk does that, right? Yeah. This one, though, I'm pretty confident this is going to come out very soon, because we've been trialling this internally for quite a long time. It actually happened probably about 4 years ago that I realised that there was so much intelligence flying around within AusCERT. And when I say within AusCERT, I mean within the actual people that make up AusCERT. So that manifested itself at the time as posts in the IRC channel that we use internally. Many of you are part of Member Chat, which is the AusCERT chat, which is the external IRC channel for members only. All members are welcome in there, by the way. That's a place where you can exchange, collaborate, talk to us, tell us what is bugging you, show pictures of your cat, whatever. But what we found was these little posts of intelligence were sort of being lost to the ages, because someone like myself isn't always in IRC because I get called out to meetings and things, and someone will have posted something really interesting and it'll just scroll off the screen and you'll miss it. We've always done the week in review, but that's only every Friday afternoon. So I said a long time ago, wouldn't it be good if every time someone posted something in there that looks like something that our members would want to know about, we just push a button and it magically goes to a list, and then at some point during the day someone goes, approved, 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 go, and it goes out to our members. Now, obviously that wasn't the highest priority thing to do 4 years ago when I said it, but I might have mentioned it, I think, earlier this year when one of our newest analysts joined us, and I won't embarrass him because he's in this room, but he took that on board, and because we're now using, of course, everyone's using Slack, we've now got that working in our internal Slack channel. So every day the ADIR, the AusCERT Daily Intelligence Report, You were just waiting for me to read that out, weren't you? Oh no, I do have it there in the little blue bit. So that actually will start going out to members. Now, we've also looked at the framework that we're going to do with that intelligence report and realised that it's actually going to be important that we can send specific pieces of information to specific groups, because we've now got a very large university cohort, we've got a lot of state government and local government, and we've got private members as well. So there's going to be news articles that are relevant to different sectors. So eventually we'll probably move that product to the stage where we can just send very targeted stuff to different groups, but we'll contact you at some point and figure out how you want to sign up to this and start receiving it. So that's the next thing to come out. That will almost certainly be next very soon. ActiveScan is already in beta, and we're already offering it to some members, and you can actually jump on the beta program if you want. We're not advertising this on our website, so it's sort of a tap on the shoulder, listen to Mike ramble at a presentation sort of thing. We will release it in production this year. We're just sort of working through how to actually realistically get the results to you, because like everything else at AusCERT, it's very email driven. So at the moment, those of you that are on the beta, you'll be receiving an email from the scan about once every 2 weeks or so when we run the scan. So we're working through how we'll get that into the member portal. So that's sort of the last part of the development cycle that we're going through with that. But the point to this was obviously all that intelligence with the MSIN product that I was talking about before, that's all passive. It's passive to us. We don't actually scan your infrastructure to get that intelligence. We collect that from, as I said, from umpteen different organisations around the world. They probably have scanned you at some point, however. This is a shift from AusCERT's traditional hands-off sort of approach to that, and we now have the capability to scan you. And this came about because, again, it was a discussion within the analyst team. They were all sort of talking about the bulletins that they're issuing. You all know the security bulletins. And there was a discussion around a particular WordPress plugin that in that particular week had a vulnerability and it was being exploited in the wild. And everyone was saying, my God, what do we do about this? We're going to obviously do the usual, which is put an alert on the bulletin, so you'll get the heightened criticality from the bulletin. We'll tweet it because there's active exploits. We'll send it to the SMS list so you'll all see it. But then we thought, well, wouldn't it be good if we could also tell members if they're vulnerable? Now, many of you will have Nessus, Qualys, whatever, and you'll be running those things as part of your security program, but not everyone will be able to afford Qualys or have time to run Nessus, or those products may not necessarily have some of these very latest bleeding edge vulnerabilities in them. So we thought the best thing for us to do is pop this together as a framework so that we can, every time a vulnerability comes up, we can go, is this worth popping in here, so that we can scan you for it. So that's likely to come out towards the end of this year, but you can take advantage of the actual mechanical workings of it already if you're happy just to receive a fairly plain looking email report about it, rather than getting a nice pretty report in the member portal. So if you want to do that and jump on that pilot, just throw yourself into the member chat and talk to some people at AusCERT, or maybe send an email to AusCERT@AusCERT. I want to talk really, really quickly about some of the other things we're doing at the moment. We are going to launch the concept of an Isacc for standard membership. So we're doing this already. Some of you will know we're doing this in a couple of small groups. We're doing it for the university cohort, and we're doing it in some state government circles as well. Now, the idea behind an Isacc, it's actually an American idea for those that don't know. It's an information sharing and analysis centre, and the idea is you have a trust group, you all participate in that group and share whatever. Indicators of compromise is the most common thing that's shared in that group, but it can be anything. It can be threat mitigations or whatever. So what we don't know yet, and this is one of my Elon Musk style announcements, what we don't know yet is how we're going to commercialise this, because there is a cost to us in providing this, because we need obviously more analysts. So at this stage we don't know what we will charge the standard membership to access this service, but if you would like to have a look at it, you can jump on the pilot At the moment, we have an instance that is just moving to production for universities, and the same with a production instance that's been running for quite some time for our state government friends. But as other members that aren't already part of those two groups, you're welcome to jump on it and just see what this is like and what it offers. We actually want feedback too, because if it's not something you want, we're not going to do it. It's that simple. Governments do it quite differently, obviously. Was anyone at B-Sides this year in Canberra? There was effectively confirmation that, yes, they are doing offensive stuff. Moving on. So that's how the government does it. Good luck to them. I think what the rest of us can do is jump on this sort of idea. Now, one of the analysts in the team came up with Share Today, Save Tomorrow, and if you're wondering why there is a Velcro patch on your AusCERT backpack that you would have picked up from reception, it's to put those Velcro badges on there. There's 3 different ones, and that's just one of them. We've only released that one today. I believe the other 2 come out tomorrow. So that's actually the reason we have that particular Velcro badge, is because it's the ethos behind what an Isacc is. Now, I'm going to be really quick in this because I know a lot of you already understand the ideas of machine information sharing versus human information sharing. So what I want to do is jump quickly to what we did during WannaCry. Did anyone notice the information we published during WannaCry? I know it's a long time ago now, but if you saw what came out from us at that time, we actually generated that using the tool we're using to build the Isacc concept within AusCERT. So that tool, of course, is Misper. You will have noticed we've got the guys from CERT Luxembourg here, and many of you would have been to their tutorial, I imagine, and learned a bit about the technology. It's kind of cool because it allows you to visualize a particular campaign and different attributes of the campaign. So down the middle of that screen there's a whole lot of indicators of compromise, like hashes of executables and email subject lines, names of files, all that sort of stuff. You can actually start building up a picture of how it relates to a campaign that goes out today to one that goes out tomorrow, if you like pretty graphs. Or if you're actually after something tangible that you can use within your environment. And this is what I really want to get feedback from you guys on over the next couple of months. And we'll come and see you with our member meetups like we're trying to do. But I want to find out how you used the information in the WannaCry alert that we sent out, and if those sorts of curated lists of indicators of compromise would be of use in the service that we're providing. So obviously this is a screenshot out of Misper. If you haven't already seen it, you can see a whole bunch of the indicators that made up the ransomware that was dropped during WannaCry. There were a lot of them. Now, we also, in that alert that we gave you, we just gave you that in a CSV file. If we were running this Isacc, we would obviously give you access to the platform. You can just log into it, grab whatever you want, or connect to it with an API and shove it into your SIEM or your appliances or whatever else you've got. And that might be a very good place to leave it. Does anyone have any questions?
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's been one question posted. Let me just double check and refresh the page here. Yep, one question posted around how many organisations are subscribers / members of AusCERT. Is that a number that you can share?
Yeah, I can. It's almost 400, but I'll tell you that number is somewhat misleading in that one can be what we classify as a small member, which is up to 200 employees in the firm, or it could be one state government. So it sort of doesn't really tell the story. What I can tell, instead of answering, well, I have answered that question, but what I can also answer is we've got representation from all of the industry sectors. So if you look at the classification of, agriculture, mining, education, technology, if you look at that, we cover all of those sectors. Some we're a lot more heavy in than others. We're very heavy in government and education, obviously, so we're born out of a university.
Great, thank you for answering that. Cool. Were there any other questions from the floor, those that don't have the app installed on their phone? There we go. Awesome.
Simon, I knew you'd have a question for me.
Is cybersecurity one word or two?
It's not a word. Neither of us are C-levels. It's not a word.
Cyber. Well, if that's... Oh, sorry.
You said initially that you're going to be part of that joint
Yes.
Cyber Command Center.
Oh,
Can you
yes,
tell
I
us
forgot
a
to
little bit
mention
more
that
about
here.
that?
Yeah, sure. So who's signed up to a JCSC? There's one in just about every city now. Yeah. Those centres are deliberately designed for collaboration. So the government has finally realised we need a space that is not a secure building, that building in Canberra that was built and they all had to move out of because they couldn't collaborate in it. They've realised that that's what that's for. So in the Brisbane one, for example, they've got a classified side where CERT sits and various other functions. Then they've got an unclassified section where you just sign in and go. Now, every fortnight, they run information sessions and they get someone to talk or they give some information themselves, and there's people in there from various industries in Brisbane. So that's kind of a bit of a first step towards the government and industry and everyone else talking. So we're in there as well. At the moment, we're only in there with me as an individual just due to some legal things, but we're working through that, and AusCERT will be in there as an organisation. So we want to make sure that those conversations that we've had, like, hey, CERT, you're doing this and we're doing it, which one of us should drop it? Or neither of us are doing this thing, who should pick it up? We want to make sure those conversations are being held very regularly. So that's the intention. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Oh, fantastic.
Will AusCERT offer Stix taxi type feeds at some point?
That is an excellent question, which I should have mentioned during talking about Misp, actually. Misp can output just about anything. It can do a Stix feed, it can do OpenIOC, it can do snort rules, tons of different stuff. So what we're looking at is, again, we want to find out what you actually want, because what I don't want to do is say, all right, I now need to charge you extra so that you can get access to Misp, but all you wanted was a Stix feed. If all you want is a Stix feed, we can probably do that without a cost to us. But if you want access to the whole portal and support and help curating indicators of compromise and all of that, like we're doing in some of those trust groups, we probably need to charge for that. So the question to the world is if Stix is something that you need, like our malicious URL feed at the moment is basically text or CSV. So if you want to see that in Stix instead, that's the sort of feedback I'd love to hear. You can send that to anyone, it doesn't have to be me, just email AusCERT@AusCERT or jump in the chat room. Does that answer the question? So soon is the answer.
So you are saying it will be available
It can.
soon?
If you want to jump on the pilot right now with Misp, you can just grab it with an API key straight out of Misp. Yeah.
Were there any other questions at all? Oh, okay.
Mikhail, wait for the microphone.
So with the Misp,
Yeah.
if you're running your own Misp instance,
Yes. You can peer with ours. So
Yeah.
Misp, the
so
thing I love
rather than
about
a
Misp,
portal, right?
correct. The thing I love about Misp is you can consume it on so many different levels. So I'm aware that some organisations have their own Misp server. So if you want to peer it with ours and either consume things out of ours or push things into ours or whatever, you can actually do that. If you don't have that technical capability, you can just log into our instance of it and consume what's in the portal. Yeah.
Were there any other questions? Probably got time for one more. No? Well, thank you very much, Mike.
And thanks for coming to my session and not going to Alex.